Thanks everybody for coming. My name is Jason Parson. I'm with Atlona. We've done this speaking session probably 3.5 years because we kind of been the introducers of USB and obviously USB into the AV space. This year we're going to be actually doing something unique. The descriptive of the class wasn't completely up to date. So I'm going to kind of tell you what we're going to cover, and I'm going to jump out and let Donald go into it. This is an AVIXA Certified 1 RU class. So this is actually an actual technical class on USB and USB-C. You're going to get a lot from this class. That's why it's an hour and 45 minutes. This is something we put on webinars nationally. We do it for special customers. When we're done, you can have copies of this. You can also test out and get your 1 RU. So when you're done, we'll scan your badge, and then we will send you the AVIXA certified test. You test out, and then you'll go ahead and get your certificate for your RU. Again, it's going to be very technical. Most of our tech support calls these days is around USB and USB-C because customers are over-designing based on our product. They're not understanding tiers and not understanding what USB really is and how they can break it. So you're going to learn a lot here. We're going to go through crazy stuff like pinout configurations, how to test cables, differences of cables. But the cool part in the end is we're actually going to show you the first ever full USB 3.0 or 3.2 extender product. And we're also going to be showing you video over USB data. Atlona's first ever, yeah. Well, it is unique to the market space. We're also going to show you wall plates that will be coming out shortly, so you'll have interop between our black boxes and wall plates. This is a real game changer in the industry. People have been wanting this product for quite some time. And about 45 days ago, we brought it out to the market, so we're pretty happy with it. We're proud of it. Donald's done this class a gajillion times. Please stop and ask questions as you see fit. The last class we did yesterday was extremely interactive. And in the end, we're actually going to have you come up. We're going to show you some system design, have you guys get your hands on some of the product. The other thing is when you're done, if you're interested in an eval, we're doing a one-time eval for the schools. It's basically 60% off MSRP to get you guys into seeing how this product works because it's a big problem solver in the industry. Have I forgotten anything, dude? No, it's okay. No, I'm going to introduce Donald. Donald's our head janitor at Atlona, and he's also the national sales engineer. He's been with the company for what, 8 years now or 9 years? 10. Yeah, and he's got about what, 18 years in the industry? 19. There you go. Who's counting? Again, guys, it's a technical class, so really enjoy it. We're not expecting you to know everything, but really hoping that when you get done with this class, you're going to walk away with some real advanced knowledge on USB, USB-C, and how you can start integrating this into your conference room or classroom designs. I do. See ya.
How's it going, guys? Like Seth says, my name's Donald Trinh. I've been in the industry for a while. I mean, there's many familiar faces here. So at one point or another, I probably interacted with you guys one way or another. But yeah, so today I'm actually going to go through USB, but it's not so much of like, you know, what can we solve for you? It's more of an overall USB course, right? Kind of keep everything agnostic, but we're going to start out from like, you know, when USB began to where we are now, okay? Oops. Can we redo that camera? No, just all right, awesome. All right, so today we're going to talk about like market trends, you know, what we are seeing nowadays with all the multiple devices that now are supporting USB-C, right? We need to understand what the capabilities of those ports actually, you know, involve, right? Whether it's going to do video, whether it's going to do just charging or, you know, data. So we're going to actually go through. I'll show you some tools that I use to kind of analyze certain cables to see if it's, you know, if it's the right cable to use. Most of the time when manufacturers send out cables for a power supply, similar to like a MacBook, right? This will pass data, but possibly not pass video. So we can verify that with certain tools that we can use here. Okay, so why are we talking about this? Ever since the pandemic, right? We started having to, you know, do Zoom calls, meetings, and whatnot. So back then, it was easy because we could just use our laptop and use the webcam and speaker that's built into it. But as we evolved into more meetings and, you know, bigger spaces, we needed to incorporate DSPs, PTZ cameras and whatnot, so more USB devices are actually having to be on the same system in order for you guys to host a good, you know, solid meeting without, you know, any type of sound degradation or, you know, you could be looking at somebody, but it's all macro blocking because, you know, chances are USB bandwidth, right? So we'll talk about that as well. Okay, so let's talk about connections. So when HDMI first came out, anybody remember when that came out?
It's all a blur, man.
I'm asking because I don't remember, so. But yeah, so remember back then for Pro AV, you know, we had DVI, you know, that was the locking connector, everybody liked it. HDMI was something that's introduced through the residential market. You know, then commercials like, yeah, we'll never use it because it's not a locking connector. Well, fast forward, we're using it. And then when we started incorporating that into like web conferencing and whatnot, so we use HDMI and USB cables, right, type A, because we need to bring that other peripherals into that meeting. Okay, fast forward to today, we have connectors just like the USB-C, and the cool thing about USB-C is what? What kind of signal does it carry? Everything, right? Yeah. Audio, video. You got your power. You got your data. You got, yeah, what else? There's a couple other things.
Ethernet.
Ethernet, there we go. Perfect, perfect. Someone's paying attention. So as far as the USB here, I'm actually going to skip through this, go to our connector types. So, anybody remember this connector?
USB-A.
USB-A. Anybody have an idea when that first came out?
2098.
96. 96. That's crazy, huh? to imagine. We're at what, almost 20 years later? Okay, so when it first came out, this is all USB 2.0, right? And then when they upgraded to the super speed, now the differentiator between the two would be what? How would you know the difference between the two types?
Second
The
set
blue.
of pins in the back.
Second set of pins, yep. And then also the blue connector, right? Okay, so as we kind of evolve, the printer cable is typically on the other side. That's typically used for our peripherals, but obviously now with printers, everything's Wi-Fi, so we don't have to worry too much about this. But we do have to worry about the super speed, because a lot of products, like say for instance, if you have any type of switch that actually has host that's built in, that still obviously utilizes that, right? And then if you have a switch that also does switching for USB peripherals within the switch, that's an important port. That and also USB-C as well. Okay. So as we kind of fast forward, when the StarTAC first came out, that's going to be your charging cable there. And then as devices get smaller, ports got smaller as well, and connectors, but I don't know how many times I messed this cable up by plugging it the wrong way. Okay, and then when was the first time you guys saw the micro USB super speed?
2003.
What kind of products?
Like
External hard drive. That's all I've seen it on. Have you? Yes, sir.
It was on one generation of Samsung Galaxy, I think.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, that's interesting. But then that's it. That's just one. Yes.
Docking stations too.
Docking station. Yeah, that's right. That's correct. Perfect. Perfect. Okay. So as far as bandwidth, when we're talking about certain USB connectors and technologies, so USB 2.0 doesn't technically mean it's all one speed, right? We have a couple. I mean, obviously, starting from the beginning, when keyboard and mouse first came out, obviously that's going to be USB 1.0. But you know, here's your different speeds. You know, anywhere from 1.5 megabits to 480, right? The standard is 480, but does that mean 480 is the bandwidth for your devices to communicate across, or is that just the maximum bandwidth for that technology? So typically, when we're working on 2.0, the maximum bandwidth for is 480, but there has to be a buffer in there for communication between the devices, right? So technically, you're working about maybe 300 megabits of data that you can pass through. Okay, so just keep that in mind when you see, you know, a camera say, okay, it's going to utilize a certain amount of bit rate. Obviously, it's going to be lower than what you're seeing here at 480. Okay, when we jump into USB 3.2. That ranges quite a bit. We go anywhere from 5 gigabits to even 20 gigs. But Realistically, we're probably all working within the 5 gigabits because, I mean, I don't see anything that we do, like audio, video, anything compressed that much that would utilize more than 5 gigs of data. So most of the extenders that you see in the market now is probably gonna be around 5 gigs is gonna be your pipeline. Okay, any questions so far? All right, so the couple of different terms that we utilize for USB. Obviously, host is going to be our computers, right? Anything that's going to be utilizing peripherals. Okay, so keyboard and mouse, and some webcams obviously are considered peripherals. When we're talking about USB, hubs are very important as well, because you can't just daisy chain hubs in USB, right? There's a certain amount of tiers that you can utilize. And then compound devices, let's say keyboard with a hub in it, right? Or a monitor, right? A monitor that has USB. You're gonna have to take those into consideration when you're designing for USB. Okay? And then composite devices, those are gonna be your, you know, your video bars, you know, anything that has multiple devices like speaker and microphone, and then obviously video as well. Okay? So when we're working with data, how typically it works is obviously USB is bidirectional. You plug in, the device is going to ask, you know, the host, hey, or the device is going to plug into the host. Let me bring that over. It's going to talk to the host, and the host is going to ask, hey, what are you? What kind of device are you? And then obviously the chipset is going to say, hey, I'm this class X USB device. And then from there, it'll do the negotiation and open up channels as needed for USB. Okay, the different transfer methods, okay, for control, that's when you first plug in, that's the exchange, right? Interrupts are typically keyboard, mouse, you know, low bandwidth type data, so in the kilobytes. When we're working with cameras, there's 2 transfer types. Isochronous, which is basically means that, hey, I need total bandwidth. It's either on or off, right? So let's say if the camera needs a constant bit rate of 100 megabits, that channel needs to be available. Otherwise, communication stops and you're not going to be able to enumerate, right? And then there's also bulk transfer. Bulk transfers are like flash drives, hard drives, and actually some webcams as well. The way you identify them, I'll actually go through and show you the software that we use on the computer, Mac or PC, to kind of analyze to see what type of data transfer it requires. Any questions so far? All right, awesome. So I mentioned earlier, isochronous needs constant rate. There is no, everything's in real time. So if you lose packets, that's it. You know, there's nothing to recover. So if you're ever working with a camera and you're in a conference call and then you see somebody macro blocking, starting to be blurry, that's pretty much you're losing packets. So you can't recover from that. But like say for instance, if it's a video and you transfer the video, right? It could be an open, you know, let's just say 100 megabits that's open, but then all of a sudden you're doing something else on the computer and it brings that down to 25 megabits. It's still okay because it can utilize the extra time to recover any data that's lost, right? And as long as there's a channel, it'll still be able to complete the task. It'll just be slower. Okay. All right. So when we're talking about USB 3, USB 2.0, any USB 3.0 port, it'll be able to downgrade to 2.0 communications for compatibility. So an example here would be if I had a USB 3 device like this here that has all the blue connectors, I could still work with any USB 2.0 device. It'll still negotiate. Obviously the speed's not going to be there, but backwards compatible. But I do know certain cameras, if it requires a USB 3, some aren't able to downgrade. It all depends on the manufacturer, so you're going to have to check with the specs there. Okay. Yeah, we were just talking about that. So enumeration, device talks to the host. Host goes, what are you? And then from there, says I'm class X again, and then it'll change the communication and the data channels that's needed to enumerate. Anybody remember that sound?
He calls it the boom boom.
If you don't hear that, that's a bad thing. So. All right, so USB data limitations, okay, typical cable, what you're saying 9 feet or so? You know, that's pretty common. For USB 2, you can go up to about 15 feet. Anytime you're working with USB 3.0, maximum about 9 feet before you have to have something like an active cable or an extender, okay? So how we solve that is sometimes you'll see a cable like this, it has an active circuit, okay? That basically pulls power and just kind of regenerates that signal to extend it. Anytime you're going further than that, let's just say 100 feet, you're gonna have to use something like an extender set like this that's basically allows you to go 70 meters, 100 meters, depending on your needs. But we're gonna talk about the different types of devices that basically has hubs in there. That's basically when you're looking at a design and you're looking to integrate into switches and extender devices. Remember I said there's a limitation of how many hubs and ports you can do? So we're going to talk about that here. Okay. All right, talked about that. Okay, so as far as tier goes here, here's a basic configuration. So any device like a computer is basically your host, right? But inside your host, there's always hubs, right? So my computer, I have 3 USB ports here. So I do have an internal hub, so that considered as tier number 1, okay? Once I add a docking station, depending on the docking station, if it has only 4 USB ports, then I can say, okay, I know for sure that it's only taking up 1 hub, so that's an additional hub count for another tier. Okay, let's start adding USB extenders. So let's just say I had a camera or a device that's further away than more than 15 feet, or if it's a USB 3, more than 9 feet. I need some type of extension product in there. So now I introduce a USB extender cable. Okay, I might have another hub on the other end because I had multiple devices. Okay, and then once I add my keyboard and mouse, okay, we're already here at 6 tiers. And how many hubs do you have? So this one's an automatic. In USB, you can add up to 4 additional hubs before enumeration starts to fail. Okay, but the more you add, as far as tiers goes, the more latency you add to your device. So technically, let's just say, for instance, worst case scenario, you have this at the 6th tier and you're there moving the mouse, you might see some latency. As you're typing, there might be some delays. So most of the time, we don't really run into that. This is like max scenario, but yeah, go for it. But as you can see, I mean, this would be the worst scenario. Any questions? No? All right. So this is just, we were just talking about that latency here. So let's talk about hub counts, right? So when you're looking at different hubs or devices extension, okay, so I mentioned earlier, as long as it's 4-port hub, I mean a 4-port peripheral for your hub, that's considered 1 tier. But when you get to something similar to like 7 or 8, what do you call it, peripheral ports, what they're doing internally is actually they're cascading from one hub to another. That's how you're getting the additional ports. So when you're working with that type of device, that's now considered 2 tiers. Okay. Moving on, certain extenders will only have 1 box here for regeneration, but some you'll actually see a midspan unit in between to do the repeating of the signal in order for you to get longer range, right? Okay. All right, so working with extenders, oops, you already saw it. But anyways, anytime you have a hub or any type of peripheral input, that's always considered a hub. So in this extension example, we have ports that we can add on both sides. So you automatically know that there's always a hub anytime you have the peripheral side. So technically, this would be 2 hubs, 2 tiers. Okay. How about this application here? So I have an extender that does video, but then I also have peripheral ports there. How many hubs or tiers would this be? Still 2. You're absolutely right. Okay? So that's the easy part, but when you're talking about working with other switches and devices that have that built in, that's where we have to really try to calculate. It's hard to know if a device has multiple hubs or not, and then I'll show you where we go to take a look at that. So for PC users, this is called USB tree viewer. Anybody ever use this? Okay, couple. Okay, so it's a very helpful tool for us to kind of analyze to see in line what's currently down the line. So if we're looking closer, let's just say for instance, I have my main root, right? That's gonna be my computer. If I have any other ports or hubs, it's gonna. So as you see, there's always little steps that'll kind of give you identification of what's down the line. But at least for this software, you can actually see that if there's any type of, what do you call it? If it's bidirectional communications or if it's just open hubs and ports. But as you're doing the design, I mean, the USB ports, even though it's a 3.0 ports in the software, you'll actually see 2 sections. It'll say 3.0, and then you'll have also a 2.0 port. But technically, that is the same count because it's actually physically it's the same port. But let's move along here to an example here. So for this application, how many ports or how many hubs do you think we're working with here? Four?
3 hubs, 4 tiers.
3 hubs, 4 tiers. Okay. So by looking at the device, we don't know, right? So we have to go back to the tree viewer, okay, our computer, our hubs here, and then basically this guy here is our little switch that we're connected to, and then from there, so technically this is exactly, there's only 2 hubs in the system. So. Solution number 2, okay, how about this application? Anybody want to take a guess on this?
I think it's 2.
2? So we got 1 hub here. We know for sure, right? Okay, we got an extension to here. There's another one there. So that'll be technically 3, right? So you look at the tree view, you got 3 hubs. I know, it gets confusing. I'm confused all
Good
the
info,
time.
man.
All right, so another cool feature about the software too is if you actually click on the actual device itself, it'll actually give you the descriptor. And like I mentioned earlier, if the camera transfer method, if you need to know what it is, it's actually written here. So transfer type, this is isochronous here. So if you need that detail, it's kind of nice here. But for Macs, it's kind of cool. Internally, there's a software in here. So go to System Reports, and if I go over to USB down below here, hit Control R. Now these are the, here, let me see, can I zoom in? Oh, I can't. But as you can see here, I'll just highlight it. So that's gonna be my computer, and this is my internal hub. Currently right now, I have just one USB-C cable connected to our extender. I'll show you the diagram in a little bit here. But basically, this extender here doesn't have any peripheral devices ports, right? So this is not considered a hub there. But we also have our receiver, which basically the box style of this, where we do have a hub in the back. So as you can see here, on USB 3, I only have one USB 3 hub, and then these are my different USB devices that are connected, which is my display link, my SSD right here, and then also my webcam. So this is pretty neat. I didn't know that this actually existed. We've been using the device tree viewer for the longest time, and then like a colleague of mine is like, oh yeah, it's a native in the software. I'm like, oh, cool. So good to know. so evolving on, now USB-C is a big trend now. Almost everything has it. All of our firmware ports are all updated to USB-C now just because of form factor. Cameras, I mean, little devices all have USB-C now, right? So cool thing about USB-C, you mentioned earlier, audio, video, power, data, and also Ethernet. Okay, the USB-C connectors. So has anybody ever, yeah, do you have a question?
Oh, no,
Oh, okay. Have anybody ever seen the actual pinouts of the USB-C? Okay. Does everybody understand what it does? Yeah? Yes, no? Okay, so, yeah?
Teach them.
Oh, I'll try. Let me chat GPT this real quick.
Yeah.
So, USB-C connectors, like I said, it's just a physical connector. It depends on how many pins are utilized. USB 2.0, you know, that there's only a certain amount of pins that are utilized for your data channels and then your power. So therefore, for USB 2.0, like I said, 480 megabits max, but then power, you can have up to 60 watts on USB 2.0 cable. So this little guy here is only up to 60 watts. And then the E-markers are basically chipsets in the cables that let you know what's the capability of it, right? I have a little cool cable tester that I'll show you guys in a bit when we're gonna test out a couple of cables. So not all USB-C cables are made the same.
When you say E-marker, it's not a mark on the cable, it's,
No, it's
E-marker's the chip.
it's an internal chip,
So you
yeah.
can't-
Yeah, you can't
look,
physically
you
see
can't
it unless you have one of these. Yeah. Okay. Let's see. And then if you're using any type of USB 3 cable that's going from type A to C, the max you can get is just 15 watts, just simply because the USB A doesn't support that, right? Okay. All right. So USB extension. So there's a couple of different ways. This is actually our 5-meter cable, and this actually does have an active chip in there. In order for us to get the length of 5 meters, as you see, the cable is quite thick, right? That's obviously needed because we can't really change physics, right? So when we're using extension, it's either active cable like that, or we go with extenders, right? So any type of extenders, but USB 3.0 extenders are currently the buzz, right? Has anybody worked with USB 3 extenders at all yet? Do you guys have any needs for it?
I'm trying to extend USB 3 off of a Pearl 2
Mhm.
so that my users aren't plugging their thumb drives in to pull the recordings off of it.
Right.
So I'm extending it out into their work area to
Right.
see, we're gonna trial that and see.
Yeah.
if it
What
works.
are you guys currently trying using that with?
COVID?
Oh, okay. Oh, yeah, that's fine. Wait, there's a company called that?
Oh, yeah.
I'm just kidding.
They're just down the street, so we
It
thought,
kind of
let's try it.
worked out for them, because then all the
Oh, yeah.
buzz for yeah. Anyways, I don't want to talk about that.
Is that lock-in screw, is that something proprietary to Atlona? I haven't seen that on.
This?
Yeah.
Yeah. So any USB device that we have, yeah, we do have a locking screw there. So
Volume visited on there now.
what was that?
Volume pads out on their video bar.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, it shipped- that was the first time we ever saw it. was
Oh,
on there.
really? Okay. Yeah, we figured. I mean, you know, we're always talking about USB-C and how easy it is to pull. So at least on the hardware end, you'll be able to secure it. All right. So here's the pinout for USB-C. If we're just using 2.0, right? It's only going to use these pins here in the middle, and then your ground, and then your V-bus for power. But when we're working with any super speed, right? Or let's just say, for instance, you need to connect a computer to one of these, you know, mini monitors, right? You got to send power to it, and you have to make sure that it supports, DisplayPort alternative mode, right? So this pin here, the CC2, once you plug in, that basically does the communication between the devices and say, hey, if you need to send video, I'm going to change these from data to alternative mode for video, right? This other pin here, the SBU, that's the sideband used. That's going to be your hot plug. What else? Your EDIT information that gets utilized on that pin. But if you're plugging up a cable and you don't see that on the tester, chances are you won't ever get video on it. So instead of, here, Let me just bring that over. So this is just another graph, just to make it easier, just to kind of show. But yeah, this is basically if these pins aren't active, you won't be able to get any of the display alternative mode. Okay. Okay, we already talked about this. All right. All right, another thing to keep in mind too when we're working with USB-C, anything that's going from USB-C to HDMI is only one-way deal typically if you're using a passive cable. You can always go USB-C to HDMI, but you can't do the vice versa, okay? If you need to go the opposite way, you'll need to have some type of device that will be able to actively change that signal. So it would have to literally be an active cable that's HDMI to USB-C to do that conversion. All right. I'm gonna skip through the boring part here. Okay, other devices, we already talked, there's multiple things going here. Okay, another thing to keep in mind, but it's not so prevalent nowadays, USB-C ports on computers. Not all of them actually supports video, right? So just like this example here, there's a power port here with a little charging or a little plug sign. You won't get data or video out of this port. That's simply just a charging port. Anything with data typically will stay there, but nowadays I think everybody's already up to date, so you don't have to worry about this too much. But if you ever plug in and you don't get what you're expecting, just check to see, make sure that the icon doesn't say it's power only. Does your Lenovo has a power port only and then also a data?
It has both, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay, so I guess
yeah,
nowadays they still have that, but at least I identify it.
Are you seeing lots of your customers, students, faculty wanting one cable? It's all USB-C now on their laptops, Macs obviously, but are you seeing multi-port stuff on laptops, or is it pretty much just single port USB-C for charging and data, video, and the whole bit? Well, I know we had a vendor install new carts in our nursing area, and the cart had 110 volt or 120 volt, 120 volt, and a USB at the top. And she plugged her laptop into that, expecting it to provide video, but it was only
That's just a charging port.
just a charging.
Yeah.
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 I'm assuming most of your students have either a lot, I'm assuming most people, what we are hearing, the industry trend is from our enterprise customers, whether it's Amazon, Microsoft, Bank of America, and most of our higher ed customers, even some of them here, USB-C seems the direction that most higher ed institutions are trying to get to. That's what we're hearing.
I think we're leaning that way.
They do give out devices to faculty that only have USB-C. Like, there's plenty of laptops on campus that don't have anything but or two USB-C ports.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. And we're still getting people that say, well, we still want both, but ideally, if we have a USB-C interface port, it does all of what you're showing.
Oh, that'd be
That's
awesome.
the direction
I
we're
would-
going in.
yeah.
Because it simplifies the room, it simplifies the cost of the room.
Right.
It reduces the cost of the room, it just makes everything, and then the failure, obviously, it's one point of failure. So I was just curious what you all are seeing or hearing out there.
All right, cool. All right, be careful when you're using USB-C hub. So when you're extending something with USB-C hubs like this, these will not support display alt mode. So don't expect plugging up a monitor to this. It's not gonna work. Otherwise, if you see something like this and it doesn't cost more than $200, it's not gonna work. It's not a dot. All right, cool. So power-wise,
Got a question?
yes.
I'd say depending on the brand and if they specify or not.
Right, exactly.
I have an Anchor one like that that actually does support external displays.
Okay, yeah, yeah. So unless it mentioned it's actual dock or
It's
has drivers.
like that, so,
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
usually marked on the
Right, right. Power-wise, be careful with this too when you're doing your power budgeting. A certain device will say 60 watts per port. Some might be 60 for total gain. So no matter what it is, we still run into this quite a bit when we're looking for any type of charging device, like a brick that'll do multiple USB-Cs here. Okay. All right. Let's see. So, okay, we talked about that. Okay, so on USB-C switchers, if you're looking, like say for instance at the switch here, and there's a native USB-C connector there, And typically, that's not gonna be any type of data ports, otherwise they'll be over here somewhere in the hub, right? So I expect that when you're connecting to this USB-C port, that port only will ingest audio and video, okay? So that's where display alt mode comes into play. So using the wrong cable there, like the white one, it's not gonna work, okay? Host port, we were talking about that. Okay, actually, so I'm gonna actually jump in and switch this over real quick. And I'm gonna actually show you this cable tester that I have here.
Is that a tester that you guys sell?
No.
Third party.
It's a third party. Yeah, I'll send you guys that. Alright, cool. Alrighty. So I'm gonna plug this guy in. Alright, so I'm gonna turn on my tester here. Okay, and as you can see here, this cable is only a USB 2.0 cable, and this is what basically comes with MacBooks that are USB-C only. And then you can see the power budget on that, if it supports power PD 3.0 or not. But when I hit the mode, now this is where your pinouts are, right? Okay, so as you notice, the RX here and the TX pins are missing, right? So that's how it knows that it's only a 2.0 cable. 3.0, those would actually be working, or those would actually be live, okay?
Which pin was the one you were saying that sends E to?
The SBU, which is gonna be right there. See it, SBU 1,
Okay.
SBU 2?
So this cable would not be able to do that?
Right, yeah, so no alt mode. But it'll pass data just fine, right? Okay, so that's one type. Let's see here.
How much is that tester?
3 dicks.
I need to call them first to make sure that I get some no, I'm just kidding. It's actually on Amazon, it's only like $50. So it's actually really cheap.
We're all gonna have one of those.
All right.
It's just $49.99 on Amazon.
Nice. That's awesome.
All right. So now I just plugged in one of our cables here, and as you can see, all the pins, they're all there. So sure enough, you know that this cable will actually pass your USB 3.0 high speed and also your video. So oops, gotta make sure it's connected. Let me just switch this back over here. And as you can see here, the E marker, it actually states that it's up to 5 gig capable, and it's a 3.2 Gen 1 cable. Pretty neat.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, and some might not, and some might not have E markers. So just keep that in mind. If it won't, you'll just get a no E marker there. But pretty cool.
Are we still at Gen 1 3.2 or are there Gen 2?
Gen 1.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Other cables. Let's just say, for instance, let's talk about USB A to C cables, right? So both of these cables physically look the same, but obviously one has a blue connector identifying as a 3. But if you need to make sure, you could also do the same thing here. Go in and you actually plug this guy, one in. Okay, so as you see, it's a 2.0 cable, and then there's your pinouts, right? Swap this over to 3.0. Okay, so then you get your additional pins right here, the RX and TX, but then obviously SBU is not there because it's not a display alt mode cable. Pretty neat? Yes, sir.
Just curious, I've never thought about it. Does the USB-A connector, does that disengage some of the pins?
It does. There's not enough pins to
Right,
fit
okay.
into, yeah. So,
Sure.
yeah, absolutely. Cool, so that's one cable tester. They also have like these little other ones where it's basically, it doesn't tell you, obviously, any e-marker because there's no display there, but essentially this one kind of gives you the similar thing. So if you need something quick, you can plug this in instead. And this I think is like 18 bucks or so, cheap. Cool, any questions?
How many folks here shifted to USB-C as primary connection for the classrooms? Anybody? How many people here have moved to away from multi-cable inputs in the classroom?
We're moving away from it. We had a hub, but I forget the name of it, but it was trash. Like, we used to have a hub that connects to, say, HDMI on your DMPS as a source. It breaks that into every cable you would need, a different name, but it's trash. We're getting rid of them for just straight,
Yeah.
either HDMI to USB-C or USB-C to
You're
USB-C.
gonna like what's coming up. Cool. Okay. What about you, Mr. Westmore? Are you still here?
Primarily HDMI, but we're going to be moving USB-C.
Yeah, I think we want to, it's just not there yet. I think, give it another year or two.
Oh, okay, cool.
We're predominantly Mac, so we kind of have to.
Yeah, should we?
But if we give you something like next week, you'll take it?
That's what they're here for.
All right, so
Keyword is give.
for a good price. All right, so when we're working with extension products, right? So whether it's a switch, an extender, okay, obviously locally you got the blue ports here, that tells you it's 3.0. But anytime you jump into HD base T ROM, right? Now that is where you guys gotta make sure you understand that once you extend a product to a receiver, that is actually now a 2.0 port, right? So locally, you still got 3.0, but make sure you don't have anything that's 3.0 on the far end because that's not gonna enumerate correctly. Or it'll enumerate, but then you'll get very low bandwidth, okay? So when we're talking about that, you can see here, locally, you got your ports up, anything that's connected here, but this one actually doesn't have an extender. This one does, but I just want to make sure that you guys understand that once you convert that right now, currently technology for Valence doesn't support 3.0 through audio video extension, right? Okay, so enough of that. Let's talk about what we can offer you today. So the EX extender kits that I have here, I'll actually have you guys come up in a little bit here, but I just want to give you a diagram of how this works. So currently right now, my computer is actually going to be connected to single cable USB-C to our hub side. You're going to have one cable, a Cat5 cable, go to our receiver or our device side, which basically has your hub. The cool thing about these is you have 3 USB type A ports and then a native USB-C. So you can use a USB-C to USB-C cable. Okay, that will actually feed the information between the two for the camera, but, all right, I told you guys this first, so you guys gotta make sure you think about us when we're doing this. The biggest thing right now is extending USB 3.0 and audio video in all one cable, right? So how you actually accommodate that now today is, so instead of alt mode and all that stuff, right, display link is the key right now. So display link use all data, right? Data, and then it converts that to your HDMI info. Similar to what your docking station does, right? So what we're doing here is exactly what we need current day, but except we could do this now with this other technology versus, keeping it native. So with that display link adapter, I just have USB here, and I could actually display video. And the display link technology nowadays is actually very good. I don't see much of a latency issue like it used to be in the back in the day, okay? And the cool thing about this is certain ones will give you 2 outputs, right? So what can you do with that? Well, you could extend the desktop with 1, but
2 displays.
2 displays. Okay, 2 displays, but what application uses 2 outputs for conferencing? So now you could, anybody use Teams? Okay, Teams or Zoom? Okay. Well, now you could use audio interview because now you have dual displays, right? So that's a cool feature. And I mean, for that type of setup, you're looking at what's the MSRP on these guys? It's
$650, $700 for that, and that's what.
let's just say 800. Okay, 800, and then you add this. What you're looking under 1,000 before we add controls. Controls, if you're adding a quick little keypad, let's just say $1,500 for this solution. Full blown, full control. You got your audio, video, everything. I can't see of any other application that can be, you know.
This switch you into the 3.2 or 3.0.
Right.
Instantly.
All right.
Solver.
Cool. So I'll push this aside. I'll have you guys come up here.
You have the diagram of the SW21TX and things or not?
The what?
We can talk about extending through the SW21TX and all that stuff.
I was just talking about it.
Oh.
Yeah. If you paid attention, you know. Okay, all right, guys. You guys want to come up here? We'll kind of show you a live demo.
You guys are gonna have to retrain your minds now.
Right, so on this side, I have three things that are connected. So right now, I actually have my little hotspot as my Ethernet, right, connected. So I'm using one of those data to Ethernet adapter. This is a full gig adapter, right? Okay, this is gonna be my display link adapter for video. I just have an SSD here, just so that I could show you the transfer speed after you go through the actual unit. So, put this guy in. Alright, plug this. Okay, so first off, let's take a look here. So now we got video, right? So you know video is coming through. Okay, but let's take a look at the transfer speed, just to give you an idea. So let's transfer, where's the largest one here? Little 8 gig video. So I'm gonna just transfer that over, oops, replace. So as you can see, negotiation started, and then now we're actually transferring 8 gigs of data, and you're seeing it in real time right now. So. There's no smoke and mirrors here. Yeah, what do you guys think? And then if you guys want, I mean, use the trackpad here and look at the display and see if there's any latencies that you can kind of see. Pretty good, huh?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
That's great.
Awesome.
I just downloaded my Steam catalog because everything, I wish it went that fast.
Right.
It's funny because the network guys at our school tell us the number one use thing for internet, Steam. The kids come to campus, download the game, it's
Oh,
the
yeah.
number one thing.
Yeah.
When I was a kid, I might have, some MP3s, so things change.
I found an old AOL just the other day.
What? Napster? What's that?
All right, cool, guys. Well, I mean, any other questions?
So is that HTTP or is that?
Yes, so this link is actually HTTP but it's just strictly USB.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's why I decided, okay, so let's think a little bit outside of the box here. What can we do to accommodate what we want in real time today with the technology not supporting USB 3.0? So I figured display links is the way to go, and sure enough, testing the heck out of this. So I have a couple questions for you guys. So if we were to create a version 2 of our extenders, what features would you guys like? And let's just say, if I was to include this display link adapter built into the box, so now this box will actually have your Ethernet, your dual display, also the rest of the USB ports here. I mean, do you guys see that as a really good solution? Okay.
Ethernet built in would be helpful too.
Yeah, Ethernet, built in. Okay, on top of that, you see that RC32 port? It's not pass-through because we actually don't have ports on here, right? So what we do here is actually, we call it TCP proxy. So basically in a control system, I can type in the IP address for this device, and then I can basically tell the control system, hey, I want to pass this RS-232 driver
on and off.
over through, right, and this is currently right now. This is how it's currently set up. So if you purchase this today, you have your control system just basically talk to this and say, hey, power on, power off.
Power displays on and
Correct,
off. Okay.
correct. And then I'll actually, so once we're done here, I'll actually log into the interface to kind of show you guys what's built in
So
here.
would that eliminate the need for like an encoder?
An encoder
Yeah.
for video?
Yeah.
No, this is
Yeah,
your
okay.
for
This is
video.
not network video.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. And you got full 100 meters.
Okay.
Wall plate?
Hmm?
You got the wall plates here too, yeah?
Yeah, the wall plate's over here.
So-
Yeah, you guys can pass
So
that around.
gentlemen, that is what plates are gonna look like. That's actually a functioning device. We're making one adjustment before we release it because Cat 6 STP is required if we're gonna do a full 100 meters, which nobody's gonna push this over 100 meters. But we're moving the port to a different location because Cat 6 has, shielded
The
cable.
bend radius
Bend
is-
radius
is-
is, yeah, so you'll eventually break the board. So we're making a modification before we release this, but those are full interop with the black boxes.
And
So
then
you
we'll have it for the host side and the device side. But just keep in mind, when you're using a wall plate, the opposite side has to be a box stop because these has to be powered one way or the other.
So it's not two power sources,
Yeah.
just one.
And then also, if you notice here, I only have my host side powered. That's the remote powered. I could actually change this back over here and then power up the host side. Bi-directional.
That's nice. Yeah, that's a huge, big deal for like guys like Microsoft that have been using Icon and like these big power bricks, and it's just a big pain in the butt. So, how far can I go before I need cable?
It depends. I mean, where are you running your cables? Because shielded cables is if you need to go to, like say, 330 feet.
Yeah.
If you're going to run that cable anywhere near HVAC, high power lines, those are all active.
The website, guys, has a full cable requirement for this product. So we're adding our website because we're doing so much in the USB space and people don't understand it yet. And I'm not trying to offend anybody, but I'd say a third of the people in this conference know enough to be dangerous. But so our biggest service call right now is people are overbuilding. They're breaking USB by adding too many tiers into our products because they just don't know better. So this is why we're putting these education classes together to train them because they're excited about it, but they're overthinking of the building. So any product that has USB now has tier requirements, tier structure on our website, including these devices, plus cable requirements. So if you only want to do 100-foot run, you can get by with Cat 5e or Cat 6a. Most institutions are running Cat 6a everywhere.
Yeah,
So no
or I
problem.
mean even Cat 6. I mean you're well over 70 meter.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this is actually the web page that actually gets served from that TX that I just logged into. A little cool thing about this is you can actually go to the USB management site, right? And let's just say, for instance, we have one of those speaker microphone that uses a battery for power. You can actually flag the port to have power delivered while there's no host available, right? So that way, let's just say, for instance, you don't use the room for a couple months. The battery's not going to drain because we're sending power to recharge that device that's needed or plugged in. Other cool thing is if you need to analyze, we do have a little bit of the USB topology here. So it kind of tells you what devices are connected to your ports. So as you can see here, there's 3 USB 3.0 devices that are connected there. So you can go through and kind of click through, kind of give you a little bit of information, vendors and whatnot. And then you can look up the code. Okay. Let's see. Other than that, if you need to test out that control port, like I was telling you, before you actually integrate the controls, you can easily go here, type in your syntax, and then send it out and see if it works. Then at least you're done with the wiring. Now the other part is just integrating your control. Yes, sir.
Now, does your control also have like the testing feature by any chance in it?
Our controller?
Yeah.
Or you talking about the USB?
Sorry, yeah.
Yeah, this is what you're seeing. Is yeah, this is how you test it.
Okay, no, I just didn't know if it had like the control, your little small tester where it actually show active pins and everything.
Oh, no, this is control for the actual RS-232 port on the device to control your display. Right. Yeah. But this this other tester will basically, that CC2 pin is your control. Yeah. So that's cool. Any other questions?
So you can control display on and off without breaking it out to like the RS-232.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Very powerful. If you guys swing by our booth over there, I'll show you that little control that we typically would pair this up. Or actually here.
So a couple of our education customers were asking for something like this outside of we have a wall plate that has USB-C host, HDMI is 2.0, and an HDMI, and of course that goes to the connector. But they want the black box version because we're getting some institutions like are going strictly to USB-C, and they're getting rid of everything else. So once this came out, this will ship in about a week or so. With that extended, now they can just do 3.0 extension, either via wall plate or direct. So they can have one USB-C cable with the 60 watt charging power. There is an auxiliary HDMI through this kind of switch. But then they can now take the 3.0 extender, pipe this through here. Now they've got a very simple, really simple classroom solution for a very minimal price. And again, they can do something well, if they don't harm, they can do something like this.
All right.
Our guys at Amazon helped us design part of this because they are going to a one cable solution globally. And so they wanted to be able to do 2.0 still over HDBaseT because not everything they do is 3.0. In fact, most of what Amazon does is not 3.0. But this now gives them the opportunity to simplify their conference rooms, one cable solution, one point of failure, and if they have those 3.0 products, they can add them to it as well. Same thing with Microsoft.
So this controller is the one I mentioned earlier. This is actually 8 physical buttons on it. The screen itself is actually a e-paper screen. Kind of cool because you got 8 physical buttons, but technically we could do page flips with these guys, and we give you guys 10 page flips. Technically, this now becomes an 80-button control hard panel, but with some logic. So let's just say, for instance, if we had 2 displays here, rather than having sources connected here, I could have one button say all. I could have this one say left and right. And then based on my configuration, I could say, left projector. And then this screen will actually pop up, and then you select whichever source you want, and then it will actually revert back to your home page. So if you guys want to take a look at that, I have that set up over there. This little unit is actually pretty powerful. It does have one RS-232 port on the back for control locally, but this guy could talk to up to 10 external devices via IP. If you need RS-232, you just get the VCC module that converts that. IR, same thing. So we have that, and also for relays for shades and whatever it is that you need to use. So